MichaelBtheGameGenie here, and today on Game Genie Reviews, we're going to be taking a look at the newly released Capcom Legacy Edition from Arcade1Up. That's right, today we're taking a look at the Capcom Legacy Edition from Arcade1Up. This apparent re-release of the Street Fighter II Championship Edition cabinet from Wave 1 is more than meets the eye, as this just isn't a redesigned cabinet, but also features many functional upgrades, as well as 9 additional games. I know, that all sounds too good to be true, and I should rush out right now and replace my Wave 1 cabinet, right? Not so fast, because we need to take an in-depth look at this new offering from Arcade1Up and find out if this is in fact the right fit for you. During what would have been CES 2021 in a more normal year, Arcade1Up announced their early 2021 arcade lineup on the 1UP Weekly with Retro Ralph and console kits, and surprised many by reissuing some of their earlier cabinets in redesigned formats and with extended game lineups in what was identified as the Legacy Edition line. One of these cabinets was a Capcom Legacy Edition that would feature all the games on the original Street Fighter II Championship Edition cabinet, as well as all the games on the beloved Final Fight cabinet. Really, it was essentially the exact same lineup as on the Street Fighter II Cocktail cabinet, but in a stand-up format, and with the appropriate screen. Many people were surprised by this announcement, as rumors had been swirling most of the year about a Street Fighter II Live release, and were taken back that this cabinet did not feature Wi-Fi. I myself looked at this new cabinet as an opportunity to consolidate 2 of my older cabinets to make additional room in my arcade, while potentially also improving the screen and controls and fixing the audio issues from the original cab, and could live without the Wi-Fi. As soon as the pre-order went up, I plunked my cash down and immediately started making plans to sell my original Street Fighter II Championship Edition, Arcade1Up, and my Wave 2 Final Fight, because I wouldn't miss them with this new and supposedly better cab, right? The cabs, of course, like usual, were released in the US before we got them in Canada, and I had heard some early concerns about the form factor that resulted in a line-of-sight issue for taller people playing while standing, as well as issues with the control panel and having to rest your hands on the ledge on the side of the deck. But of course, I assumed this was overblown for review purposes and wanted to experience this for myself. I received my cabinet finally a couple weeks back and put it together, and man, is it ever beautiful. I've always been a huge fan of this design, and always so envious of seeing Cool Toys' original cab. The new form factor isn't exactly a match to the original, but it certainly looks more like a traditional arcade cabinet than the historic Arcade1Up Swan design. The side art on the Capcom Legacy cab is incredibly simple but accurate to the original cabinet, showcasing the iconic Street Fighter II square art they placed on so many conversion cabs. That image of Ryu's back with the Street Fighter II title logo, and man, that tribal art is screaming 90s to me. It just looks so cool. The side panels feature a slant out like an original cabinet to hold the marquee. However, unlike an original cabinet, the marquee doesn't come right to the edge of this sectioned out area that has left wings that so many fans have been critical about. I don't so much have an issue with the wings as others do, but the marquee placement is certainly problematic to me in another way, which I will come back to. Thankfully, the marquee itself is phenomenal with that amazing tribal art and the Street Fighter II logo. Really, this is a great looking marquee. The marquee is the older slim model, but still features good light distribution and no visible hotspots. The screen is the updated BOE monitor that Arcade1Up have been using since Wave 3, and it's just fantastic looking. I was blown away with the difference in picture quality between my original Final Fight and the game on this cabinet because of the improved contrast. It honestly looked like a different game. If there is one big reason to upgrade, the screen itself could be one. The bezel is beautiful again, recreating the look of the original cabinet's bezel and using that awesome tribal art. One area where I am actually unhappy with the screen is the slant they use. Since Wave 3, we have seen a more slanted screen that has drastically improved the gameplay experience, which I thought was for viewing comfort. With this model, they left the screen more upright, which tied in with the new marquee placement creates the dreaded line-of-sight issue that has been reported by so many, and which I must sadly confirm is a serious issue. If you are an individual 5'9" or above, you will have a very difficult time seeing the screen standing in front of the cab to play. If you want to leave things stock, you will either have to use a stool or get used to trying to contour and stretch your body in unique ways to find an appropriate viewing angle. Moving down to the control panel, and you will recognize this immediately as a control panel from the Street Fighter II Championship Edition cabinet with some minor modifications. From an art perspective, this control panel is accurate-ish to the original design. On the original cabinet, that tribal art appeared on the edge of the control panel where the J panel would be on this cabinet, but they decided not to include that in this design. There are some other changes from the Wave 1 cabinet if you look closely, such as the color of the blue buttons are now darker and more of a royal blue as opposed to the lighter blue on the older cab. There is also no mono speaker to be found on this control panel, as there are now stereo speakers above the screen like in the Wave 3 cabinets. This is a very welcome change, as the stereo speakers help alleviate the issue with the Street Fighter games where some audio was cut out due to the mono, and of course, where I have OCD, this drove me nuts and was a necessary upgrade. The other thing about the speaker panel is that it's the same size as the ones used on the Wave 3 cabs, and I am thinking that this may be why the screen was slanted as much as they could use standardized parts. Maybe I am wrong, but I am just trying to understand why the mistake with the line of sight happened, and I am still scratching my head. You will notice that the control panel is also smaller than the Wave 1 Street Fighter control panel, as instead of hanging over the side of the side panels, the control panel now rests inside, taking away some of the length and making everything a lot more squished than it used to be. You will notice my hand on the buttons on the Player 1 are almost touching Player 2's control stick. I used to find it tight playing 2-player on these machines, but with the Legacy it will be even more difficult with these new restrictions. What is even more disappointing is that there is a raised edge on each side of the control panel that, due to space limitations, you will have to rest your hand on while playing, which isn't super comfortable. I understand what they were trying to accomplish here to recreate the look of the original cab, and typically I would applaud that, but not when it comes at the cost of comfort. There is another issue with resting your hand on the ledge where you could possibly start to wear the art on the side panels where your hands are resting. I honestly can't understand how this passed stress testing. There is no way the control panel and line of sight issues wouldn't have been picked up in QA stress testing or in-person demos and been fixed before this went to public for mass consumption. Sadly, this isn't a slight issue, but an actual problem with the design of the cabinet, which sucks because it does look so good. The controls aren't so good either, unfortunately. The buttons are the standard Arcade1Up buttons and work well enough, but the control stick feels off for some reason, and I am really struggling to perform special moves in Street Fighter that require a diagonal, much more so than in other Capcom fighting Arcade1Ups. If you keep moving down, we come to the kick plate, and the long years of moaning are over, as there are no longer game titles, and they have been replaced with a faux coin door sticker that I think looks just great. Only problem now is I want all my cabs to look like this. The riser is absolutely stunning, and may be the best one Arcade1Up has made to date. It's again that amazing tribal art that looks just so good, and the yellow text of the Street Fighter 2 logo just pops. Speaking of pops, that yellow looks so good as a trim color on the cabinet and really makes this one stand out. Overall, this is a beautiful cabinet. In fact, it's a piece of art, but unfortunately in practice this cabinet suffers from some pretty serious design flaws that flat out make it uncomfortable for an adult to use. I love the idea of this cabinet. I love the attention to detail they paid in respect to the original cabinet. I wish that they took some additional measures to make sure the cabinet played as well as it looked. I know that is a bummer, guys, but luckily the game selection isn't, as this cabinet features some of the greatest arcade games in Capcom's game library. Now, let's take a look at some gameplay from all 12 included games.
Round 1.
So guys, that's my take on the Arcade1Up Capcom Legacy Edition cabinet, and really, it's a great product, but unfortunately, it has some functional issues that would stop me from being able to fully recommend it. On the positive side, the game selection and UI are fantastic and add a ton of value to this arcade. The screen and stereo speakers are a definite improvement over the earlier models, and of course, this cabinet allows you to consolidate some earlier Arcade1Up cabinets to make additional room in your home arcade. On the negative side, of course, we have to talk about the line of sight issue, the control deck ledges, and of course the cramped space on the control deck, which makes it uncomfortable to play, and ergonomics should never be an afterthought when talking about a product of this nature. If you intend to play on a stool, or you're shorter like my buddy Detroit Love, I don't think that'll be a big issue, and I think you can get past the control deck ledges. However, if you're not going to do that and you still intend to pick up this product, be aware that you will have to modify this to get past these issues. Guys, let me know what you think of the Capcom Legacy Edition in the comments below. Thank you so very much for watching. This is Michael B. the Game Genie, and I'll talk to you next time.